Welcome to All Access, where we meet at the intersection of healthcare and generic and biosimilar medications. Brought to you by the Association for Accessible Medicines, representing the generics and biosimilars industry.
Hi there, welcome. I'm Dan Leonard. Welcome to All Access. We are coming to you from Access 2022, which is the annual industry extravaganza event for the generics and biosimilars industry. We are in Orlando, Florida for the first time in person, first time in 2 years. So we're very happy to be here and having a great event. And because we are here, we have a lot of luminaries with us, and I am pleased to speak to one of those luminaries right now for our All Access podcast. I'm joined by Alok Sonig, who will be with us for the next period of time to chat. Alok is the CEO for U.S. Generics and Global Head for Generics and R&D and Biosimilars at Lupin Incorporated. So, Alok, welcome to All Access.
Thanks, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. And one thing that everybody needs to know, that Alok is, as of yesterday, is now our immediate past chair, but has been the chairman of the board for AAM for the last 30 months, which is a record period of time for a chairman of our organization. Starting in late 2019, and we can talk about some of the challenges and great achievements that have happened over that period of time. But thank you and welcome again, Alok, to our show.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on. You know, I referenced the time that you have been in the chair, and maybe let's just start there with some reflections on that period of time from 2019, global pandemic, other things happening in the association and in the industry. How'd we get through it all?
First thing I'll say is it's been a pleasure working as a chairman at AAM, being a board member for a period of time as well. It's just a fantastic group of staff, Dan, that you have. And it was personally, pleasure to work so closely with them. What I'd say about the staff at AAM is right during the pandemic, when we were still figuring out employee and site safety and health issues that everybody was facing, our employees at AAM, they rose to the challenge and never missed a beat. So it was that initial onset and how to get things done, because bills were still being lined up in state capitals and in Capitol Hill. There were still some big challenges that we had to overcome, and the team really rose to the occasion and made things happen, even while we were trying to figure out how to work remotely and get everybody on Teams. So it was just great experience, and personally, joy and satisfaction for me to see the team really step up to the plate. And this was also a time when we were going through a transition, as you know. You were still not on board, right? We had just had our CEO leave. So I had the opportunity of working even more closely with the staff and loved every minute of it.
Well, it's nice of you to say such great things about such a great staff, and I echo everything you said. They're a great team, and it is a pleasure every day to work with them, and to have a great board of directors for me personally to work with under your leadership. It's been terrific. And yes, we faced the kind of the going remote, but everybody did. I mean, you were certainly involved at AAM, but you had your own company to run too, and you were looking at all these challenges from the Lupin perspective as well. I mean, how difficult was managing all of that?
Yeah, so I think as with everybody else and the rest of the world, the business world, it was once in 100-year phenomena. So everyone was learning. And I think, at Lupin and the generic industry, we stayed close to each other. We were doing board meetings across all our 23-member companies on a weekly basis to share best practices and really share learnings, how to keep employees safe, how to make sure that employees were showing up and felt comfortable coming to that work environment, especially in the plants and factories where they were working close to each other, right? And just getting that going for a period of time and making sure that we were able to produce all the right medicines, all the product, and getting that product into the US on time was a big challenge. And I think it was the challenge that often unifies people and clarifies the goals. So with that single-minded focus, it was just great to see everybody show up and get on the task of producing medicines. That was our first goal, to making sure that the employee safety and site safety was paramount across all our 20 plants around the world. And then was making sure that Teams was working for everybody that was remote in the office and doing a desk job. So they kind of rallied around that challenge as well, and made sure that we were signing up for those airline contracts when number of flights had been reduced, coming from all global plants into the U.S., and making sure that we still had product on those planes, and signing contracts on the tarmac and making stuff happen in March, late March of 2020. So that was a great learning opportunity, and just very happy to see that everybody at Lupin obviously rose to the occasion. Everyone in the industry rose to the occasion. There were a lot of chatter, a lot of talk on how medicines would go short supply, but I have to say we never really saw shortage. We might have seen shortage of cars, shortage of other
Masks,
commodities
PPE.
and everything else, but not medicines. And it was so important for the patients in America to not go short on products, which is critical, because we knew that those who have compromised immune systems or with an underlying condition would be at extra risk of COVID and COVID-related complications. So that was an intrinsic driver in making sure that we're able to bring product here.
Yeah, there were a lot of policymakers and leaders predicting a very dire situation for medicines getting to the United States, supply chain shortages of essential medicines, shortages of medicines that were treating patients at the time for COVID, not a lot of, and it didn't happen. I know it got challenging, as you just noted, at times, but it did not happen, and that was no accident. That was because of the work that had been done in advance by your companies and all of our member companies to make sure it did not happen. And as you know, I've been saying that the generic medicines were the bridge to the vaccine from those early days, and in many cases got patients out of the hospital when they had COVID. But like I said, it was not an accident, and the supply chain challenges then, they haven't gone away. Now we have just more shipping issues and rising costs, and this the supply chain issue. You just came off a panel on this topic here at Access, so it's becoming an evergreen issue to deal with these supply chain challenges.
Absolutely, Dan. I think that's such a good point that what we learned, back in March, April of 2020, obviously that was a big jolt to how we think about supply chain, and as we think about the virtues of just-in-time to need for safety stock for all key products, and that's those are key learnings that we have, and also to ensure that we de-risk our raw materials, APIs, and packaging materials, because it's not just finishing the product, but it's also making sure that you have all the supplies lined up, you have the key starting materials. How do we make sure that there is resilience and redundancy in the supply chain, even as the pandemic sunsets over time, but as we strategically create a design for a supply chain, over time. I think there are just many lessons that we've learned, and we've learned the lesson to make sure that we're dependent on more partners and on more countries. So the more dependent you are on more players, the more independent you become. As the paradox, right? So many learnings for sure.
Yeah, well, and I'll just give a plug here for the blueprint. So during this period of time, 2020, the AAM staff under Alok's leadership we put out the blueprint for supply chain security. It's become a real essential document for everything that we do, and other groups are now looking at the blueprint. So that was a great piece of work from our team and under the leadership of the board.
Well, thank you so much. I think the blueprint speaks to the need for the downstream controls that we need to have to make sure that the supply chain is robust and it has the redundancy and the resilience. So we need to keep putting that in action. I think it's a powerful tool. It's got legislative legs as well. So as we think about bringing product in, and especially essential medicines, We've been saying that we need to build that redundancy around the essential medicines, those 80 to 100 products, and to be making those products in the US would be great in exchange for price volume, contracts, and ensuring that the government is buying that directly from manufacturers. So that's something we look forward to, and making sure that we're able to shift some of that work in the US.
So you can find the blueprint on our website, accessiblemeds.org, and take a look. So I mentioned at the top that you are now our immediate past chairman. Tomorrow you have your opportunity to kind of speak to the audience and reflect on these 30 months in the chair. You can give it away because this, the number of folks in the room can hear it. But what do you plan on telling the people tomorrow?
No, I think, as we work together as an industry, we were unified in our resolve to deliver medicines to patients, and that became the big pull. It was always about putting patients first and making sure that we accelerate access to quality medicines to patients in America, and we will certainly be riveted to delivering that goal, across all member companies and as an association. So, I'm going to touch on the many accomplishments, despite all the challenges that we've been able to deliver. So there have been many legislative advances we've made. We have highlighted some of the systemic issues around the Medicare Part D and the access issues there. There are still blocks to access, and as far as Part D formularies are concerned. You've got issues around the Blocking Act as well. The 180-day exclusivity, that is the cornerstone of our business model. So we want to make sure that we are able to sustain that and preserve the provisions of the 180-day exclusivity, which is the heart of Hatch-Waxman. So there are some legislative wins I will talk about. There were just a massive amount of work the team did at AAM on, tracking down those 1,700 various legislative bills and packages through state capitals, and making sure that we were able to address all of those concerns and ensure that we have an ecosystem that delivers. Obviously, a lot of the supply chain issues that I just mentioned with you will be part of the highlight as well. That's something that we need to continue to learn from and make a case with the blueprint moving forward. And I think the one thing I would ask for more member companies to join our association. There are many out there, and while there are 23 members, but there are nearly over 100 companies in the US. So I would encourage companies to join, and this is a critical time for the industry to ensure that the supply chain and the business model discussions that we are having at Access 2022, that they need to benefit from that and be part of the journey as well.
Yeah, well, I will amen to that, because we do need to get more engagement from our member companies. Do a great job, and we're involving our member companies in the advocacy work at the association on a regular basis. But the other companies, they need to join as well, because we are stronger together. And so these are conversations I enjoy having, and trying to grow the association is top on my list as well. So typically we start these with a little background on the individual, and then we get into the issues. We kind of flipped that around today and went straight to the topic, because you were just on that panel on supply chain. But tell us a little bit more about your formative years and how you got into the industry, and your background and history.
Yeah, so it was, I started out in consulting, right outside of DC, where I finished my grad school, and did some consulting in healthcare and high tech. And then when I was working with innovative pharmaceutical companies at the time, I was really just taken in by the value of science and medicine and engineering to deliver these wonderful innovations to patients who needed them. And that was really just such a big motivator for me to see the value of the innovation and the impact it was creating for customers, for patients, and for societies, and globally around the world in such diseases. So, had a science or engineering background, and I was, with the business background, just enjoyed that space, and then moved on to Bristol Myers Squibb, where I spent nearly 15 years in various capacities, in marketing to strategy, both mostly locally in the US, but also globally and regionally, working with a large pharmaceutical company, and then moved to the generic industry in 2012, and worked with Dr. Reddy's Labs for 6+ years in various roles, and led the developed markets, Europe, US, and Japan for them. And I've had the pleasure and privilege to lead Lupin over the last 3.5 years for the generics business and generic R&D. Now I feel very fortunate to be in an industry where I've learned a lot from mentors and managers and leaders, and of course working alongside my teams to deliver these innovations to patients and enabling them to prevail over serious disease.
Yeah. Well, we have a somewhat similar trajectory in that case, because as you know, I came from the brand side, and where BMS was one of my members at my last organization, and came over to the generic side. So we both have certainly an appreciation for the importance of innovation and R&D and investment on the front end. But man, when it comes to getting patients the medicines they need and saving them money, there is no greater value story than our industry.
Absolutely, it's all about access. At the end of the day, we have to be able to deliver the right medicine for the right patient when they need it. So very proud of the work that the generic and biosimilar industry does, and it's such a big driver of showing up at work every day.
Yeah, and that's why Access is in our name, and Access is the name of our show here.
Absolutely.
In Orlando. And tell us a little bit about your education and your even the earlier years for Alok.
Yeah, so I did an engineering degree, and was born and raised in India. So went to Punjab Engineering College and did my engineering there, and I came to the US to pursue an MBA at American University, right outside of in DC, actually, and had a great time, and did many things while working and studying at school, including working with the FDA and FTC and internships and other such things. So got that exposure and got into consulting, and
off to the races.
Yeah.
You may not know this. I did a semester at American University. I went to college in Ohio, but did a semester in DC semester at American. And I said to myself at that time, I want to come back to this city. I thought just really Washington is a unique place, but I said at that moment, since. I never left really. I've been there. I've been here a long time, or there in Washington for a long time. So I just want to thank you personally, Alok. You mentioned mentors, and you've been a mentor of mine since I came on board, and even before that. I mean, the process that you referenced during the transition. I met yourself, but I met the committee that you had set up, and it was so professionally run. And I just saw the kind of the earnest way that the team, the board members were addressing this challenge, and literally having weekly calls during the pandemic. All hands board calls. That is unheard of. So that sold me on this place.
It was a critical role, and we're so privileged to have you in this position. It's been a pleasure working so closely with you. So thank you, Dan.
Good, and that's the benefit of having a podcast. You can have people on that you really respect, and so the mutual respect is thick right here. So thank you very much. And on behalf of the team at AAM and on behalf of the board of directors, we really, honestly, we want to thank you, and I'll thank you formally tomorrow, but for your service as chairman.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to working together on the board. So thank you.
We'll keep going forward. All right, thank you for joining All Access. We have a massive crowd in here, but we're having a good time after a long day.
Everybody.
Thank you, and tune in for our next episode too.